to Truth Over Feelings again. Remember, here we freely explore the beauty of our emotions, but are confronted with and challenged to embrace the truth over our feelings. I'm Sharayna Brown, and this is my third episode. This episode is really near and dear to my heart just because, listen, y'all, 3 is a good number. Jesus got up out the grave on the third day, and that is some great news. Good news, great news. And I have some good news today, too. On this third episode, I have my very first guest, and I think I'm more excited about this than I am my first episode. So I've been thinking about like what I could do for this episode. And when I thought about it, I thought about my good friend. This person is literally one of the funniest people that I know. And he's super caring and a really just awesome man of God. And he can sing his face off. And he's one of the worship leaders at our church. So, when I tell you he's a worship leader at our church, like it's not just a regular worship leader at our church. Like he will usher us into the presence of God, and I'll be at the church just bawling on my knees, crying. So he is truly gifted by God, and I call him minister because he is so wise, and we have these amazing conversations where we just kind of sit down. It goes deep. We laugh, and it's a great time. And if you don't have a friend like him, then I'm so sorry for you, and I will be praying that you get one because he is just super dope. I could keep going so much more about him, but I don't want to be here all day, and I know he doesn't want that either. So I want to just invite you to meet my good friend Odie. Let me just hook us up so that we can both see each other.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, Sharayna.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
I just want to, before we continue, for the people out there. So my name is Odnakachi Anyao, which Sharayna, I think we discussed before whether she would try to say it or not. But yes, you can call me Odie. Lots of people call me Odie. I'm called Adi. Whatever you prefer, I will answer. But the name my mother gave me was Odnakachi.
So listen, I think I told you this story before. When we first met, I remember you told me this, and you were like, you prefer to be called Anakachi. Did I say it good?
Well, you asked me what I prefer to be called, and I mean, my preference is to be called by name, but you were so committed to like getting my name. So like every time I saw you, you would like make an attempt to pronounce it and to call it out, which I really appreciated, honestly. So.
Well, I would practice it. Like when we weren't together, I would practice it.
I know.
And
I think you got it though, Sharayna. Go ahead. I think you got it.
Anakachi?
Odnakachi.
Anakachi.
Odnakachi.
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 Odnakachi. Odnakachi.
Odnakachi.
Odnakachi.
Perfect.
Really?
Odnakachi. Yes, you got it. Odnakachi.
So I would practice this, and I would ask BB. I was like, "Am I saying it right?" Before I would see you, and she was like, "I don't know," and I was
like, "Come on, BB, with the assist."
Listen, and I would practice it, and then one time, Tayama was over, and she was cooking something, and you were about to come over, and I said your name, and she was like, "What did you say?" And I was so embarrassed and hurt, and so ever since then, I just stopped trying because
it's all right.
She shamed me into
I appreciate the effort. I do.
This was like a long time I was trying this. Thank you for your grace.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I 100% trust me. I've been called a lot of things in my time in this country. So you were very close, if not on the nose. So we good.
Well, continue to extend the grace. I feel terrible. I'm like, yeah, this is my good friend. You're like, why can't you say his name though?
That's funny. That is funny. It's all good.
Well, I was thinking about this. We often have like conversations about music, and one, because you can sing so beautifully, and you know exactly.
You're kind.
About, whereas the layman like me, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, it's
not the layman, child. That's funny.
And so I thought it would be neat for us to just talk about music. But then when I checked in with you yesterday, you said, you were having a little bit of a tough time. The week was a little bit rough,
Yeah.
especially with what's been going on. And that's with Ahmad.
Yeah.
And so just been some heavy stuff. And
Yeah.
I think maybe I'll split this up into different podcast episodes. So I just wanted to kind of, before we started talking about that, check in with you. But before we do that, I just want to always try to start off my podcast with prayer. So
Yeah.
I'm going to pray and then I'm going to check in with you.
All right. Perfect. Yeah.
Dear Lord, I love you so much, and I am just so grateful for the community that you've provided for me, Lord. I thank you for Odie taking the time to join me. I feel privileged. I feel blessed that he would even consider spending time with me to do something like this and something that's even going public. Although my little community in the world is really small right now, I know it's a big step, and I just appreciate the grace that he's extended me. I thank you for our friendship, and I just ask that you continue to shower him with your love. And I praise you for the gifting that he is. I praise you for the man of God that you created him to be. I ask that you just bless our time together. As always, I pray that it is glorifying to you and edifying to the kingdom. And we just lift you up, Lord, and anything that doesn't look like you in our conversation, I pray that you just eliminate that. And I bless the people that will listen to this. I pray that you just touch their hearts, Lord, and in some way a seed is planted, and along the way it will be watered, and ultimately that you grant the increase.
Yeah.
We love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, so tell me, what's been going on with you? Like, how have you been feeling since we've been on this stay-at-home order?
The stay-at-home order. I think it's been waves. It's been waves. In the very beginning, even as there was indeed like the concern about exposure and potentially getting COVID-19, I feel like we were still learning a lot about the different ways you could get it. What was the appropriate amount of caution? Is it 50 people being gathered? Is it 10 people being gathered? Can I go to a restaurant? Can I not? And then we got to working from home. And at the time, like the conversations with like people at work and others is like, this might be a few weeks, 4 weeks. The way that I work, I know myself, so I try to budget for more than that, so that if it is longer, I'm mentally prepared. So I was like, y'all saying 4 weeks, we might be at home for like 8 weeks. I don't really see this turning around in 4 weeks. So, at that time, you get home, even with everything going on, there's a degree of excitement. And it's weird to use the word excitement, especially considering the loss of life and the suffering. But I think just the novelty of it, right? So the conversations everyone is having are, how am I going to use this time differently? Where usually we tend to be moving, especially in this area, in the DMV area, incredibly fast paced, always having things to do. This was a slowdown for a lot of us. And barring hoping and praying that as you move in caution that you don't end up getting this disease, or that someone you love doesn't. We're having conversations about, all right, there are things we can't control, like the fact that we're going to be at home a lot, we're spending a lot of time by ourselves, we have more time than we usually do, some of us. What can we do with that time? So with that, there is excitement. There's the, all right, I'm gonna pick up this guitar that I purchased that is really turned into art into my apartment rather than something I play every day. Let me, I now have time, let me do that. Spend more time in the Word, spend more time reading, spend more time praying, introduce some new rhythms into my life, break some bad habits. It was a lot of that. Try and get healthy. So I had done some of that.
Before you continue, y'all, man of God has been losing weight. So he is looking great out here in these, well, not in these streets, because
not in these streets, not at this time.
In the house. He is out here looking great in this house. So he ready. Go ahead.
Well, thank God. No, honestly, I don't know. I guess this is going to be an experiment in, transparency on camera publicly. But no, I had been really struggling with my health for many years. I was diagnosed as pre-diabetic by my doctor in a physical maybe 4 years ago, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I know people who I've heard stories of people who struggle with diabetes, and I was like really afraid of what it meant to um, cross over and go from being pre-diabetic to actually being diabetic and needing drugs and assistance and help and the impact that could have on my health. What was interesting, even with COVID-19, is when they talk about some of the vulnerable populations and people with preconditions, one of those preconditions was being diabetic. Um, so even though I'd had a lot of false, starts and not always being able to maintain consistency in the pursuit of my health, this was one of those times when I was like, you know what, I'm home. I get to cook for myself. I get to be intentional about my schedule, and I'm an all or nothing type of dude. So sometimes a lot of this is the success I have seen or have not seen is because I either went all in or I wasn't able to go all in. So I just didn't do nothing at all. So in this period, it was really humbling myself to be like, just start slow. Like start with, what you can do with your diet. Like try and take some walks, just take your time and prayerfully make progress. So I'm so thankful for what God has given me the grace to be able to do so far in my health journey, and I pray by the power of God that I continue on and see more progress. So thank you for that nod, and that was probably a long answer to.
No. Well, that's one how our conversations go, but that was really good. So like you said, excitement, and then you didn't
Yeah,
really verbally say it, but like it sounds like some fear
yeah,
there.
absolutely some fear. I think the rest of that journey and that wave got to a point. It's like, okay, Lord, I am, when I find in my time with the Lord, thanking Him really for some of the privileges I know is a privilege that I have. Being able to have a job in this time, being able to work remotely, that is not everyone's experience. Realizing how much of this is really exposing the economic disparity, and even institutional racism in this country, when it comes to how people are getting health care, who gets to work from home and who doesn't, who is the protected population, who has that privilege, like just wrestling with a lot of that. So in the same token that I am, thanking God for the privileges that I have, I am thinking about the people who are not in that position. um, I'm thinking about my mom, who's a nurse, who's working and being exposed. I'm thinking about my dad, who has a job where he is also exposed. I'm thinking about my family back home in Nigeria, and people I know back home in Nigeria for whom the idea of a quarantine or social distancing, when you subsist by what you exchange day to day in the market, is um, like you're asking people to choose between hunger and potential starvation, and not exposing themselves to coronavirus or exposing others to it. So I think that really drove me to just prayer in the midst of that Thanksgiving, acknowledging and reminding myself of God's goodness, that He remains faithful even with everything that I'm seeing. Um, and that He cares. I think while He is good and while He is faithful, that there is not a loss of life, there is not a hardship that He takes pleasure in, you know? So just spending time with that. And the next wave was actually having this thing get closer, meaning like I now know people, or I remember Sharena, you share with me, some folks in your family, we're praying for each other, praying for people that we know that either have coronavirus or have loved ones who have had coronavirus or who have lost loved ones to coronavirus. I had, um, a loss, significant loss, just with folks that I work with who lost significant loved ones, and that kind of messed me up for a couple of days, because I think for the first time I looked dead in the face at the possibility that I could really lose someone I love to this virus.
Well, let
Um,
me ask you this then. So you kind of alluded to it, and that like things, these feelings, these emotions driving you to prayer, like facing these concerns that you have and what emotions that come up. What do you do? Like, how have you been challenged? In addition, if there's anything, is it just prayer, or is there anything else that you've been how have you been challenged to go to and embrace the truth of God over these and to combat these feelings of fear, concern, worry, whatever, all these emotions that you have? Like, what have you been doing? You kind of said prayer already, but
yeah, some of them have been active, some of them haven't been as active, but I know that God is active in all of these things. So that is the blessing. In all of the ways that we've been able to maintain some semblance of community in this time in church community, like our discipleship groups, our cohort groups, just sending out a message saying, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now. And that is actually what I did. Like when I felt overwhelmed, I messaged my cohort group is a discipleship cohort in our church, and I was like, hey, this is what I'm feeling right now. This is what is happening. I knew immediately that people were praying for me, reminding me of truth, spending time in prayer as well myself, meditating on who God is in those times as well.
mm,
And it's not always easy. Like it doesn't mean that the rush of emotions didn't come over me. Even in the midst of those prayers and those reminders, there was still, feelings and emotions I was wrestling with at the time, but engaging in my mind with the truth at the same time.
mm,
So speaking to how I felt at the moment, and hoping and believing and praying that um, at some point my feelings and my emotions would catch up
mm,
with the truth.
yeah.
That was the process. But I've learned over time. There was a time when I just had the misconception that being a Christian and being a believer and walking in faith is it's almost like having any type of an emotion is a sign of a lack of faith. And I've learned that that's not true actually at all.
Mhm.
That I can grieve, I can be sad, I can um, experience some degree of maybe worry, fear, anxiety, but I can speak to those things and I can point truth at those things and fight my feelings with those things. I don't think the expectation is because I'm a Christian, I will never be afraid. You're talking about a virus that's killing how many? I mean, if you look at the numbers every day, it is frightening. But I can meditate on and be reminded of a God who is in control, sovereign over all of it, and whose character is that of being good, and who is merciful and just and wise.
Mm,
These are the things that I have to encourage myself with, and find myself over time feeling differently. But in the moment, I come to God with what I feel, you know.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and that takes me to like one of my favorite verses in Hebrews where it says, "For we do not have a great high priest who's unable to sympathize with our weaknesses."
Mhm.
Um, one who was tempted in every way that we, and just I think that the tail end of that verse, even though I'm forgetting it, I should look it up. But the point is that I can approach the throne of grace with confidence
Yes.
to receive mercy and help in my time of need.
Yeah.
And I be having times of need, y'all. So I am grateful for that verse and that reminder that I do not have to back away from God, but I can come to God as I am with my fears, with my temptations, with my concerns, and that I will receive help there.
Come
I don't
on
have to
now.
figure it out before I get there.
Listen, y'all, this is why I love having conversations with him because it's so good. Yeah, that's so rich. Ooh, I love it. When in this time, and I don't want to like beat a dead horse with it, but like what is one thing that you've felt is the hardest to deal with for you personally?
Mm, mm.
And that's not negating like other people and what they're going through, like
No,
just
no, no, absolutely, absolutely. No, I think I think it changes week to week.
Mm.
I would say right now, especially as we are in week 8 or 9 of some of us, kind of being quarantined and physical distancing, it is that I genuinely miss people. I miss people. And that is so trivial in comparison to a lot of the suffering and trials that people are facing and struggling with. But like I miss my family. I want to give my mom a hug. I want to give my dad a hug. I want to give my siblings a hug. I want to give you a hug. I want to, be with I want to be the Kimberell everlasting. No, it's not everlasting. Like Try Me Again album cover hug. I just want to see my people, and I live by myself.
Mm.
So it's a lot of time spent. There's a lot of opportunity in that for God to use that time.
Yeah.
But I'm a social person. I started to think I became an introvert and a homebody over
I
time.
remember that.
Yeah, because I had transitioned. I used to be out here, and then I was like, over time, I'm like, people be feeling like they are trying to drag me to come out to something. And that's the privilege of having too many options of things to do. Hello?
Listen,
Now,
let's pause there, because let me tell y'all, we've had many conversations where I would invite him and he ain't got time for it, or he'll
it's not even time. I just be
commit
like,
to
I'm
it.
tired, y'all. I ain't really trying to end it, I don't know if I got the energy,
But
but I
then
love.
you would say like, well, but don't stop inviting me. And I'm like, excuse
Yes.
me, I won't stop inviting you, but I will give you a fair
Oh,
warning when the
God.
invitations will stop. But go ahead.
Thank you for your grace and your mercy in our friendship and continuing to invite me to things, but no, it's crazy. Like all of that activity, some of it overwhelming and appropriately so. We should seek time to rest and separate and all of that. But now I just really long for that. I miss church. I miss people. I miss family. I miss friends. I miss outings. I miss all of that. I've been really erring on the side of extreme caution. I have conversations with my siblings all the time, and we joke about all of our different philosophies on this, and they just expect me to be extreme because I'm a bit risk averse. But what that's looked like is
But you are extreme. You already said that. We see this all the time. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I am. No, it's the facts. It's the facts. I am extreme. I am indeed extreme in that way. But yeah, like the closest I came to really like seeing someone, I went to go see one of my best friends from college. We became best friends in college. But he lives in the DC area. He's from here, and godfather to his daughter, and his daughter is turning 5. So they wanted to do a party for her. She has a lot of friends. She's well loved. She loves so many people. And so they decided to do like a car parade, so we were just going to drive by the front of their house and honk our horn, and they were going to play music and all of that. And I was excited about that. At the same time, I felt myself getting overwhelmed because at least when we're doing this, like the distance is clear, right? You're at home, I'm at my home. But it's another thing to see someone that I love, people that I love so much, so close and yet so far in this time. And so I pulled up late as I don't want to say usual, but I was late. So I got to see them outside. But yeah, we kept some distance. We were all in masks. They were on the other side of their fence, and I saw them, and I really wanted to embrace them and embrace his daughter um, and yeah, so that was as good as it was going to get. It was a blessing to physically see, my brother and friend Langston and Jasmine, his wife, but I just really wanted to embrace them. So, yeah, it's an interesting time. We're all going through it. It's not unique to me, but I would say that's one of the things that I really miss dearly is being able to interact with people socially in the way that we used to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is tough. And I mean, you've talked about it already, but I don't know. It's just like you said, like waiting on the Lord. I think a lot of times when we think of like waiting on the Lord, especially like in this season of our life, it's just like, okay, like when is the next career? When is the next husband, wife? Like when am I gonna have kids? You know what I mean? Like now it's like waiting on the Lord for this. I don't know. It's just like but then there's like, for me, this hope, this anticipation, not in a somber way, but it's like, Lord, I know you are still good, and the like you are fully in control despite all of this grief that's happening around. So yeah, that's good. Well, in the past, the first 2 episodes that I did in this podcast, I talked about purpose, identity, and idols, and I have some questions about these things.
Let's go.
So, one of the challenge questions I asked, I've made up a name for anyone who watches this, and I'm calling them feelers. So hopefully they receive that. So one challenge question I asked the feelers are, how have you maximized your intimacy with God during this period? And just a brief recap, since you haven't watched the first episode yet. Catch that shade there.
I usually catch all the shade, all of it. I missed that. I was in the midst of thinking about the question so much, because I don't miss nothing. I don't miss the shades. I don't miss a shadow, child.
I know you don't.
I don't miss an overcast. I don't.
So when you get around to it, but I'll just do a brief summary for whenever. I was just talking about like how the Lord revealed to me, like, this is the time now to be maximizing the intimacy, because I was thinking like, oh, as soon as, like, now that I'm going to be staying at home, like I'm going to have so much time for intimacy with God. And then I was like, man, like I'm way more busier than I was when I was outside. What is happening? And it was just like it was just a realization, and it was just like, I feel like he was just letting me know, like, oh, you thought it was about this, like you were making these excuses about all of these things, and here we are now. You're inside. This isn't about the time. This isn't about the where you are, but this is about how you prioritize me. And I was like, okay, I got it. And there was this period where I was just like checking off the list of reading and spending and praying and spending time. It was just like something I felt like I was just doing because I was supposed to. And I felt the conviction of it. And I was like, God, please, like, help me, like, give me a hunger for you. Like, replace this complacency, this legalism that's happening in my heart with this, like, thirst for you. And like, and when I asked, like, I just started seeing that shift. So tell me, how have you been maximizing intimacy with God during this?
So there's the answer I wish I would be giving you, and then there's the answer. So the answer, the answer is, like I said before, like in the beginning of this, there's that excitement, like, okay, we got this time, we're gonna slice this up, do all of this, and I saw some consistency there with time with the Lord. And there's a slowdown. So like there are less seemingly competing priorities outside of work. I had a point where, work started to encroach on much territory of the rest of my time. And, and I found that, like, lacking being intentional and not just prioritizing, but protecting time has proven to not be successful for me. So I have found, and I'm thankful for it, because there's less activity. I have more moments where I can just pick up spending time with the Lord and maximize that, which is sweet. But there are some questions before we even started talking today I had for myself with, like, okay, how are you going to do that? How are you going to maximize that time? Which means I need to answer when is that going to happen? How am I going to protect and block that time? And so I'm grateful for the more time I have been able to have in the slowdown, but I definitely, there's a lot of opportunity, and I want to be intentional about making more time. So like I was telling you earlier, I was in a little bit of a funk, and just scrolling through Twitter, and I came across a video of Jonathan McReynolds, like, singing, you know, at Tyrese's house, and he was surprising his wife, and it was a date night, and she had on like a blindfold, and she was able to identify that it was Jonathan Hills' voice without, he was just breathing into the mic and humming, and at the beginning of a song, and he was surprised that like he would be identified in that way. I'm like, of course, bro, like your voice is like one of a kind, you know. So we definitely know when it's you, when you're humming, you know. So I went and I looked up the whole video, and you know, even as it became prayerful for me, you know, that I find space for what I treasure. I make time for what I want. I choose my priorities, and Jesus, you're my number one. So I will make room for you. I will prepare for two, you know. And then just so you don't feel that you can't live here, please live in me. I'm like, Lord, this is an opportune time. Even when I struggle with loneliness sometimes, just being here by myself, that I can find what it means to find absolute pleasure and satisfaction and fulfillment in the Lord. So I'm excited about continuing to spend time with God. I am excited about this all ending too, but it's definitely something that I look forward to.
Yeah, I think those are one, I really love that song.
Love it.
Love
So good.
listening to it. It's so it really makes you think, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in this time with me in Truth Over Feelings. I had my first guest interview. It was so much fun. This is the first part of episode 3. I can't wait for you to see the second part. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See y'all next time.